Hello again, welcome back. And if you're not coming back, my name is Al, and this is a tutorial series. This is part of a tutorial series concerning C++, and there's a link in the description always to get to the first one. Now, there are a couple of things worth mentioning before continuing on. One thing I should say is that I've been pretty loose with the wording sometimes, and I want to just make sure that you understand that I'm not always using the perfect words for what I'm describing. Like, for instance, I think in the last one I used the word directive for this, right? But that's not the right word for this. It turns out that would be, if I wanted to give that the right name, it's a modifier or keyword is better than directive. It's closer to the right wording. Directives are usually things that are words or keywords, types of keywords that affect the process of compiling, and so usually one would use the word directive when speaking about the preprocessor or something like that, like those number defines. So that's one thing. Another thing is that I want to talk about before going on is just the Windows operating system itself, which is, as it turns out, yet another example of one of these abstraction layers. Now, on the history side of it, the original version was written in C, okay, but it was still a type of abstraction layer, and again, that brings up the questions like what was the intended abstraction and so on. Just like the questions we asked concerning DOS. Now, the original version and the way we're writing this program here is going to be more in the context of what they call the base functions provided by Windows, the original version of Windows, and that of course would have been a C interface. And if you remember from that other project, I still have it, I was just looking at it, that this thing had and still has two interfaces. One was a C interface, C wrapper. So here's the original. Now, I changed these to H something handles to be more like window, right? And then I explained how the handles are like pointers to void type things, and they were things that you would pass back in, and that's how the original Windows works. And as you'll see as we go along, we'll get various handles to things, right? And then to do something with one of those handles, you pass the handles back in. So the way they originally had this is in fact similar to that. Although you'll notice that these are not. These are just reinterpret casts. There's no checking there's no type checking here going on like I had. So they're just passing back the raw C++ object. The other interface to this lib, if you look through the header files, is a C++ interface. Okay, so the virtual keywords everywhere, everything virtual, everything exported, which is a little bit strange in itself, but now if you were writing a C++ program, you would use the C++ interface. Now it turns out that Windows itself was eventually rewritten in C++, in the operating system, and in a similar fashion, one of the abstraction layers, part of the abstraction layer, has a C++ interface, and that's this thing called GDI, Graphics Device Interface. One of the abstraction layers in Windows, try to get away from here, it's driving me crazy, is called GDI. GDI. And that stands for Graphics Device Interface. Okay, written in C, but also an abstraction layer. And the Windows abstraction idea, at least for this particular layer, is that everything is something called a device. Alright, so no matter what it is you're looking at, it's a type of device, and one type of device is a graphics device, and this layer is the interface to the graphics device objects. Okay? And what they return to you, what is this particular sub-layer, there are several layers. This particular one concerns objects such as things like objects for drawing. Okay, so if you imagine that this screen, right, is an area for drawing things like rectangles, words, or whatever, and if you want to do something on this surface, you ask for a handle to the particular type of drawing object that you want to use in order to draw something. And for instance, one example is something called a pen. Okay, so the analog is you have a pen and you want to write stuff with a pen. Okay, and there are types like H pen. Well, that should have come up in the right color. Let me fix that. By the way, another thing you'll notice is I got two boxes going here, and one of them says administrator and then the rest, and this other one doesn't have that administrator one. If your system defaults to this, then you should change that. But you shouldn't let that be the default. So that's a security leak in your system. And if you want to know how to change it, you can ask me. Just send me a message. Now, one of the reasons why I have this going is to show you something else, but Windows. Another reason why I would have to have it going is to edit this file, which normally I would not be allowed to edit. Where's my Windows section? It's all mixed up. I've been creating this thing on the fly. I think there's a thing called Get stuff pen. Now that's probably a C++. No, it's just get stuff. Okay, so this is a number defined. But there's all these things are called handles to GDI object. Okay, and there's an index for each type of object. Now, one of the subclasses of objects for drawing things is called a pen, and stock means just things that are already existing things. Make one, but you know it takes a while before you can actually start using these things. Stock font. See, there's a font object, and these are all to do with graphics. And another example is a brush. Okay, and the analog, of course, being that you're not drawing with a pen; you're drawing with more like a paintbrush. Okay. Now, I don't. That's hard to. Maybe if I just do get stuff object, it'll give us a list. No, I don't know. I don't know the list yet. So I look at I press F1 on this, and I'm gonna lose my spot, but whatever. Now, see, some of these things are what they call brushes. Some are pens. Some are fonts and palettes and various objects. Okay. Now, what do you draw? What are you drawing on? You're drawing onto the thing called a device context. Okay. It's not a device. We've gone from devices to files, and now we're back to devices again. But they're abstract devices, and some of them you can draw on. A printer is also a device, right? But it so there are some things you can't do with a printer, but there are a lot of things that you can. You can still draw a box, for instance, on a printer device. And then there's various colors and whatnot. Now, so this thing, as according to the help file, returns an HGDI object. And there's a function, I think, called getPen. Where's the base? It's got to be a base. It might be that there's no base version for that. You have to just cast it as a hpen. Oh, I look for hpen. See, it's a type. Oh dear God! And this is the thing I'm trying to get to. Maybe. I know that hpen itself is a type. This should not produce an error. See? And the F11 on that, it just says declare handle, which is the same thing I was doing. So you're not given any information more than a handle, and then you pass the handles into the various functions, and the various functions use this interface, get DC, okay, which retrieves a device context for a window, okay, and if you want to draw something on that window, then you need to get a pen or a brush, right, and take your handle to a pen or handle to a brush and draw on the handle to the device. And that's exactly the same as this. horrible thing. As horrible as it is, that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, passing back handles, although unfortunately they gave them the names that make them look like classes and structs instead of pointers to void, so you can't see it as well. I don't have my version in here. Okay, now what about the C++ interface to the new and improved Windows? The C++ interface, instead of being called GDI, it's called GDI+. Okay. Now GDI+ is something that is a wrapper again. A C++. Now it's even C++, plus, so many pluses they call it C#. And it wraps around this .NET framework. In my favorites here, I had an example here. Now, see, for instance, the GDI drawing device, not inheritable, okay, has these various methods. Now, you can sort of imagine what's going on here, right? Draw the ellipse, draw this, draw that. It's probably something with pens. Get HDC, you see. Get the handles of device contacts associated with this graphics. Now, do you think it's going to return a Windows HDC? Doubt it. It'll probably return an object that it has. Yeah, see? Well, it's an int PTR, which still, again, is another type of class. See, that used to be a number, now it's an serializable. Okay. Now, starting at this, if you're starting your programming at this level, you can see what a difficult starting point you're at, right? Like, what is this calm visible attribute? And then you're here. This, okay, all right. So what's this interface thing to do with? And what's a flags attribute? Okay. Oh, I've heard of that before. Gee, I don't know. A delegate. I need a delegate for. All you want to do is just draw a picture, and okay, well, here's an example now. All right, string members. Where do I start? Okay, main, int main. I've heard of that, and eventually, here, after all these statements, the defining things that you have no idea what they do, you're able to write a line, okay? But anyway, it's a C++ C kind of interface. Now, I'll probably use all my time just describing this, but this is important. Okay, now I don't want to use this, obviously. What I'd like to do, since we're learning about C++, we're not learning about Windows specifically, or GDI, or managed code, or this and that. We're learning about C++, which is how this sort of thing is implemented. Okay, so that doesn't accomplish any of our goals using any of this. It'd be better to just make our own using the take the C interface, this stuff, which is easy to understand, pointers to void, and then we can use C++ to create our own secondary abstraction layer to take away the details of this abstraction layer and make it easier for people to use. And that's why this dialog thing is a good example, a place to start. Now, there is one. Do I want to mention this or no? No, not yet. I just want to show you. Now, MFC is another example of a software abstraction layer to the Windows C interface. Okay. Now, I've made this thing that doesn't exist anymore. So I'll make a new one. I just want to show you what you would get. Okay, from the same spot. Just by taking the default. So here I am, and I want to make a program. Okay, now I said that I've chosen MFC application, and all I'm going to do is select defaults. Okay, and maybe I might select one thing, like the type or something. So far, I'm not going to select anything. Alright, nothing, nothing, nothing. I mean, just take the default. Finish. Now this is your starting point when you do that. Now the question is, where do you start? Here it says my program. Alright, okay. But it's a little bit, like it's a little bit difficult to decide where exactly you're supposed to do the stuff that you want to do. Well, at least you can check to see if it compiles. But I mean, once you're familiar with all the various little details, then it's no problem. And then it's okay to start out at this point. Here's what it gives me by default. You see, it's got quite a lot of things. I can, I have a toolbar. I've got a help, an about box, and I can open files. So there's quite a lot going on here that I didn't have to type in myself, and that could be an advantage, and that would be an advantage if we understood what the hell is going on here, which we don't, and which most people don't, and that's what leads to the kind of stuff like this. Gotta get away from this one too. I have this program installed on my system called Corel Paint Shop. Okay, now I know for certain that this thing is using GDI plus. Alright? How do I know that? Well, because after I installed this, the very first thing that came up was I needed to get an update to my redistributable .NET framework, DLL something or other. And the other way I know is by using this Process Explorer. Now Process Explorer is like this thing, okay, but it provides a little more information than Process Explorer. This, I don't think it will tell me very much detail, but this thing tells you quite a bit more about a particular process. And if I can find it in the list here, okay, here it is. And if I look at the details of this process, okay, first I can see that it's C++ definitely, at least, right? There are double colons in there. It's also using COM. This is something to do with COM. Now, all these something unknown is common object model COM. But here, Wait, that's not it. Here. See? GDI plus. Therefore, they're using GDI plus. Now, I know for a fact, 100% certainty, because I downloaded an example, that GDI plus has an interface that if you understood how to use GDI plus, that you could take an animated GIF, like the one I showed you running, the one I want to display, this here, and make it do that. Okay? Now, this great big program that costs hundreds of dollars uses GDI plus. However, if I take that file that is an animated GIF and I drag it into here, guess what it says? This is an animated GIF. Only the first page will be opened, and saving over this file will result in loss of information. Great. It can't see the other, all the frames or any information about it, but it's using GDI plus, so they have all that information in there, right? I mean, the program has built within it all the functionality necessary for me to not only animate this thing, but edit the individual frames. And this is a great big expensive commercial product. I actually paid for this, although not this version. I had to cheat to get this one, but it should be able to do that. And I'm guessing, of course, a complete guess, but my guess is that the reason why it can't use the GDI plus on my animated GIF is because GDI plus it's very difficult and complicated to learn just on its own. Okay, just the interface to GDI plus is a great big complicated mess, right? And finding the particular functions that you need to call to edit and animate that file make it too difficult for the programmers over at Corel to figure out how to do it. So, and I can't find any program that can do it. So I went online because I know how to animate things. That's not a problem. And I found this page. Where is it now? Oh, it's one of my favorites. Where you don't even have to download a program. All you do is just click on upload my GIF, and it sends you back. It sends you back a download of all the individual images. And that's what I did. Because I know how to make an animation. I could have just figured out the file format of an animated GIF. There's nothing to that either. It's all the information is online. If you go to Wikipedia and look for animated GIF, they tell you the precise format for an animated GIF. Just trying to find what this web page sent me. Should be in here, or it was before. It's still in here. Now I save these as 24-bit bitmaps because that's the very easiest graphics type of graphics file to work with, right? It's nothing but an array of color value. The color depth of this GIF, you could imagine, is not that big. It's actually 8. That means it's using a palette, and a palette is it's one more extra step I don't want to use. I got lots of disk space. I'll use a 24-bit bitmap. That just means that's an array of 3-byte values. But each one can be cast to a D word. but the 3 bytes are red, green, and blue color, right? Very easy to draw a bitmap image. And anyway, so my point is that it's not always so great to start at using these predefined, pre-prepared interfaces, unless you have an idea of how the interface was built in the first place, and then it makes it a lot easier for you to go ahead and start using them. Alright, so one more question I wanted to answer here before going on, which will be the next video. So checking my time there. Is this word, where'd it go? Well, first, Dialog Box, okay, and this word. And you see this, you're going to see this word all the time, modal, right? And I was curious about what the etymology of this modal word, where does it come from? And I did find some information where this word modal comes from. According to the official definition from Microsoft, you see, when you open and run a dialog box in the way that we're going to be using it, again, we're going to have the same problem as message box, that the thing stops, right? That is, it doesn't go to the next line of the program until this thing has completed its task. And that's called modal. Now, I'm curious, why they use the word modal? So what Microsoft says, modal is restrictive or limited interaction, right? Due to operating in a mode. So that makes some sense. So modal means we're entering a kind of mode, right? And somebody further added an interesting take on this, which really makes sense to me, I think. The word dialogue, right? Obviously, that's this. Oops, that derives from this word, right? And the mode in question here, it is like a conversation, right? So when you're running a dialog box, the dialog box is a conversation with the user, and that's why it has to go into a different mode and stop, because some question or something is being asked, to the user, and we have to wait until we find out what they say. Now, there's another kind of thing that probably shouldn't have the word dialogue in it at all, and that's this modeless dialogue. This is an oxymoron. Modeless dialogue. Okay, that's an oxymoron. That's a meaningless statement. There is no mode. There's no conversation going on. There's no dialogue going on. That thing just runs in its own separate space and does its thing regardless of what the user says. Well, sometimes there's like maybe a cancel button, right? And half the time they don't work. But this is not a dialogue. But I guess because it has similar properties in terms of the visual appearance, they just decided to put these two words together and call it a modeless dialogue. So it's this is they could have called this rambling on or something. a rambling on, or like a thread. Somebody's just talking to themselves, like I might be doing right now, without any interaction from the user. I don't get any interaction from you guys who never leave any comments or send me a message. So, like, I'm involved in a modal dialogue. I'm involved in a non-interactive conversation with myself. Okay, so now I didn't say anything about making these things, but I think I may have given you some idea of the fact that we're dealing with a new abstraction layer, and we're adding a custom abstraction layer, which is what C++ is designed to do, is to make it possible for us to make customized abstraction layers, and I want to do it. And it's really, it's not difficult to do. It's not that hard to do, at least at the easiest level. You know, we're gonna do, instead of calling a function dialog box, this is a function which takes a handle. What we'll do is we'll create an object which is called a dialog, you know, and then we'll tell it to change it to become modal, to talk to the user, right? And that's usually how these things work. The MFC version of that function is called doModal. That's how you have a dialog object, and you say dialog doModal. You could say talk to user, right? Or get answer from get answers from user. That's a lot of typing, so they just say doModal. Alright. Well, now I'll go on and I'll start making the next one. And this is more background stuff, so not really part of this project, but whatever. Okay. Oh yes, one last thing. Well, nah, forget it. Okay, see you. Bye-bye.